Cheers, queers! Today on the Big Gay Agenda, we are talking to the talented Sean Hemeon about his upcoming debut novel, The Good Little Drug Lord. Welcome to the podcast, Sean.
Cheers, queers. I love that. Thank you for having me.
See, you fit right in. We're so happy to have you. And we're happy to hear about your book.
Oh, boy.
For our listeners at home who may not, know of the novel, can you explain to them what it's about?
The one line punchline is it's about a gay Mormon drug dealing narc for the federal government. There you go.
If that doesn't intrigue you, what does?
Mystery, intrigue.
I mean, it has all of that.
All of that.
I promise you, it has heavy moments because, I mean, like, what could lead to that? But when I first sat down to write this, literally on the first day, I just said to the sky above me, I was like, ugh, I don't want this to be sad. And so for the first long while, that was actually the title of the book, because I had researched other memoirs and God bless them for getting their story out. But sometimes people just wallow in like the trauma it just becomes almost like masturbatory in a way. Like it becomes like, look at me, look what happened. So I was just like, ugh, I can't do that, and bad things happen, but I tried to write this in a way that was entertaining. So just know that, it's a big subject, but, I try to have a lighter hand.
That's also a great title. Bad things happened, but I tried.
Yeah.
I swear, I don't know if you've ever been in a position. I don't know if you're authors as well, if you've had to create a title. It is shockingly hard to come up with the right title to encapsulate everything.
Yeah.
You see simple. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No. I want to relate. Tell me.
I had to title a documentary. Very difficult.
Oh, geez. Yeah, well, you see titles, and sometimes they're simple words, but then you're like, wow, that could mean this, and this. And people have no idea. The author spent probably a year going through like hundreds of words just to be like, that's the title finally. It feels good when you land on it. You do know it. So, yeah. And The Good Little Drug Lord is the drug lord is the obvious part, but the good little is the peak moment of the story. There were some things that I did that brought my character into question, that things that I never thought I was capable of or would ever do or could ever do. And so I lived with that. And so in this memoir, I go backwards in time as well. I go backwards through my high school closeted gay Mormon years and even to my younger age, hence the good little, because I was the good little boy. I was the good little Mormon boy. How could I go from the good little Mormon boy to this drug lord? So that's why the title is, that's what I'm working with right now. So
it's a good title.
It is a good title.
You did great.
Okay, good. I'm glad you like it.
So what inspired you to write this memoir, and like now's the time?
Yeah. Well, so I've been in recovery for, in April, I'll have 20 years of sobriety, which is crazy. 20 years. It's just, how did that happen? And my first, 5 or 10 years, my first 5 years, I'll say, I came up in, rehabs and 12-step rooms, and, in those rooms, we share our story, that's how we connect. And so I shared this story a lot, but I was such a shell of a human that I got so much validation and gratification from people's oohs and ahs, what? You were an informant for the federal government? What is that? What? Russian mafia? What? So I would get off on that. And then as I, did more recovery and more inner work, the story just lost. It's almost like I took the story, put it in a box and put it away. I was like, that's not who I am. And, cut to now, almost 20 years later, I pulled it off the shelf again because it's not who I am now. It's not a story that represents, Sean as I am talking to you. And I'm separated enough from the story not to feel like it's my identity, the guy with that story. So that's one reason. But to be honest, like the real reason is, I'm going to jump off the deep end here. I'm going to get into a quick story, but just warning, I'm jumping into the deep end. And it has a point because it's going to answer your question. When I was after I was arrested, which I can get into how I even got there, but after I was arrested and they turned me into an informant, and I was like, I'm not a rat, I'm not going to inform, but everybody, this is Washington, D.C., not wanting to deal with me. I figured I needed to go get drugs in other cities and bring them back. And so I could work my way up to suppliers around D.C. I'm going real fast here just to give context.
You're good.
But this is when I said earlier, things against my character that, who I thought I was, and then I'm faced with this situation. So on one of those trips, I'm trafficking drugs through airports at this point. I'm going south, closer to the Mexican border. Like I'm going down to Atlanta and Florida and New Orleans, where it's a little bit cheaper to get like meth, and then I'd fly it back. This is like 2004, and so I hate to say this, but surprisingly easy to traffic drugs to the airport for a guy who's 22 and looks like a dumbass white frat kid. I would buy tickets one way day of, which is an automatic red flag, but they put me in a line with 20 other Middle Eastern looking men because this is post 9/11 and that's all they cared about. That was a side note. Anyway, on one of these trips, my supplier, I had met one of his friends, and basically this is a whole chapter in the middle of the book, but he OD'd, and I gave him the drugs, and it was a whole classic scenario. We dropped him at the ER and got the hell out of there. The thing that I hold on to from that experience is my brain was so warped from, not sleeping for 3 or 4 days, all the drugs, everything I went through. And my brain could not believe that this person was dying literally in front of me. And so I acted too late. By the time I acted, I was like, wait, I was a lifeguard. And so I tried CPR, but it was too late. I hold on to, I could have acted sooner. And it scared me enough that I stopped traveling. Now, the reason I wrote the book is because 2 weeks later, I'm still out there. I mean, out there as in about to be going to prison. Anyway, 2 weeks later, after we dropped this kid at the ER, dead, I get a random phone call. And it's this woman with this deep, Southern, Alabama, and she immediately is like, please don't hang up. And I'm like, well, who's this? And then I realized I was the last phone number that this young man called. So I was the last number on his phone bill. And this was his mother. And my brain immediately was like, this is a setup. I can't confess anything. This is a setup. This is a setup. But literally, it was this mother just begging to know what happened to her dead son. Yes, the toxicology report probably said, he had this in his body. But how that happened, she just wanted to know how. She just wanted to know. She just wanted to, please don't hang up. Please, I just want to know what happened. Begging. And you guys, I hung up on her because I was paranoid. I was scared. I was all these things. And so that's 20 years ago. And I still feel that. I got, after I got sober a year later, I tried to find her. I tried to find the hospital. I tried to do everything I could to reach her and be like, look, this is what happened to your son. You deserve to know. I couldn't find her. And then I tried in the last couple of years and I couldn't find her. I don't even know if the hospital's still there. I don't even know. I looked through obituaries, but judging by her accent versus where I was in Atlanta, I was like I said, it's probably in Alabama somewhere. I met that kid that night, and I just want this mother to know what happened to her son. So my book is like a message in a bottle. It is like the fantasy of, what if this does reach her? Like, that would, it was so in a way, it is my amends to her for not being able to reach her. If it, I wrote it specifically, even though I'm LGBT and that is definitely a theme in there, I tried to write, I don't want to say I tried to write in a broad enough way where like mothers would want to read this, because my relationship with my mother is core to this. So I wanted to reach as wide as audience as I could, truly with the goal of reaching this mother who could, she may not be alive, and she may be, she'd probably be like early 70s at this point. I don't know where she is, but you asked why I wrote this, and like, this was truly majority of the motivation was to reach this mother, and of course behind that is the amends for myself and moving forward. But it really is primary, and it really drove me. It's still driving me. Like, I want this to be very successful for her. That makes sense. Hey,
No,
I
it
told you.
definitely does.
Okay, good. I told you we were going to dive off in the deep end. Like, we're right into it.
Now, that's a powerful reason to write this book.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope it reaches her.
Yeah.
I know, it's like Oprah calls me and she's like, come in for an interview, and it's like, guess what? Or something.
Oh my God.
Could you imagine, like, not even knowing why you're there, and then like having to have that that would, first of all, it's a lot for everybody involved.
Yes, I know. So who knows what'll happen? Who knows if I'm supposed to reach her? Who knows if I'm just going step by step with this. And if that fueled me, then I took it, and the book is here. And then when it's released and it's out there in the world, that's the next step, and we'll see what happens with it. So again, if I'm supposed to reach her, I'm supposed to reach her. She could have found a way to move on and just doesn't want to even hear about it, So I don't know.
Is there enough details where if she, like, someone close to her could even?
I think yeah. No, there's enough details around the time and age and how he looked and generally where. So there's enough that, like, I know somebody with a son around that age, around the spring of 2004 in Atlanta, who, I'm sure a lot of people OD'd around that time, but how many actually OD'd that I'm also describing as he was also, of course I remember it this way, but he was very attractive, like Abercrombie outside of the bag model attractive. Of course I remember that. But I also remember some details about some bad experiences he was having with his ex, whose family was very religious and was like literally keeping them apart and stuff. So there's some details there. But the supplier, the one that I was actually friends with, his number, I don't even know I don't know what's up with him. Like a year later, his phone number was disconnected. So I couldn't even reach him, who'd have more information.
Right.
Maybe he reads it and then like fills me in. I don't know. So, yeah. So we'll see. I mean, once this is released, it's out of my hands.
That is true. Yeah. That is true.
Yeah.
So in the novel, as you mentioned, you grew up Mormon, and from the novel, there's a degree of like talking about like conforming, and like in general, like when you conform, usually there's some kind of price that comes with that, especially when it's conflicting with like who you are authentically. So how did you handle that topic in the novel?
You mean like how did I talk about my younger self being a good little Mormon boy?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, because part of because going backwards in time, I really wanted to explore the effect it had on me. My mother, she knows she's read the book already. She knows all of this, and so I can say that like she was quite depressed, quite overwhelmed. I had 6 other siblings, so there was 7 of us, and it was, she was not in a good situation or headspace. My father, I will say, was raised Irish Catholic. And so he was not Mormon. And that's important because I think it helped loosen the hold on me. However, my mother was the one I needed the validation from. So she was the one, whatever she needed. So that's why I was like the best little Mormon boy. And I was, all little gay boys were close to their mothers like that. I have 4 other brothers, and I was like, I'm gonna win. F you all, watch this, And so I became like, my absent father, who was overwhelmed with trying to earn enough money to support 7 kids. Of course, he's absent. I was like my mom's best friend, so that meant being a good Mormon. And then, F you brothers, I win. But believing the world I lived in was the Mormon God's world, and the Book of Mormon was true, and Joseph Smith really talked to the angels and the golden plates. And by the way, that's a whole other subject. I'm happy to do another podcast just on the Mormon origins. Anyway, side note. But believing that, not being allowed to question it. I do remember being precocious as a kid, being like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense. And then my Sunday school teachers being like, calm down, don't ask questions. Cut to 13 and 14 and the advent of AOL and the internet, and these curious thoughts happening and exploring it online, and realizing, there's some dissonance starting to occur within me, and realizing, I remember very clearly, like in 1993, being right outside DC, like I said, where I grew up. My mother and I, we loved to watch Star Trek: The Next Generation. Patrick Stewart, Jean-Luc Picard, and we'd always watch that together. But there was like a news break, and it was about in '93 there was like a gay march in DC. I think it was like ACT UP. It was I think it was during the time of was it during the Quilt? I just remember there was a march in DC around '93. And on the news, you saw drag queens, men in leather, women holding hands. Like you saw everything. And I just remember my mother turning it off and going, disgusting. And that was the moment I think I realized I was gay.
Oh,
What a moment.
Well, because I started sinking into the couch. I could feel this like shame like vibrating through my body. Like, I mean, I was radiating heat, and I was like next to her, and I was worried she was gonna, like, I mean, I just melted. And that reaction told me everything. And so that's when the thoughts of like 13 or 14, a year old should not want to die. But that's when that came up, because then the equation became, according to the Mormons, this is like a curse, like a disease to be gay. Like you did something wrong to get this thing that I can't seem to change. So then the equation followed that I must have done something wrong or bad to God for him to curse me with this. I don't know what it is, but it must have been fucking terrible. So I'm an awful human being. I'm 13. This is what I'm thinking. Like, I've been cursed with the disease of gayness by a God who must loathe me. And that's the world I existed in. That's how the Mormon connection evolved. And so I tried to be the best little Mormon boy at that time, but it just wasn't. It would vacillate between that and then AOL and like talking to 15 male New York, AS, age, sex, location. Do you remember?
yeah.
I remember back in the day. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Way back. And you don't even really know if it's some 60-year-old man in Australia. Like, you have no idea.
Right.
But so that at night, and then going to being a good little Mormon boy. And then I lasted in the Mormon church until about 15, 16. Now my eldest brother went on his mission, BYU, the whole 9 yards. My 2 other brothers, by the time they got to high school, they were like, F this. They became more like my dad, who made fun of the religion. But I held on. I went to, Mormons, they send I think the most abusive thing is sending your high school kid to church before school every morning. So you're getting them at 4:35 a.m. so they can go to school, Sunday school for like an hour and a half, and then go to high school. I'm like, that's when they need the most sleep. What are you doing to them? Yeah, it's called seminary. It's very common. It's very, very common. But around 15, 16, I was starting to question it. And then the biggest thing that happened was I started having feelings for, and this is all in the book, but for he became my like best friend. We played football together. And I got his screen name and I pretended to be somebody else online. And I swear my brother's birthday, I'm sorry if that's making noises. I found out his screen name and I pretended to be somebody else. And I, got the vibe that he was like into guys as well. And then that turned into one drunken night. And all 4 years of high school, he was my undercover lover, and it saved my life because what I felt for him, it felt so right. So I was able to use that as a bulwark against this God that said, that I must have done this horrible thing to curse me with gayness, because I was like, if this feels so right, that has to be wrong. And I had a tight grip on that mantra, on that thought, because again, but it made him my entire world. So when that thing ended, when he so tragically left me for somebody else, by the way, no teenager is equipped to have the kind of relationship we had. So when that ended, my world ended, and my outing was when I tried to physically harm myself, which, it was one of those things like, if I die, I die. But, I really harmed myself, and that was my outing to my Mormon mother, begging me to know what happened. So I told her. The first thing she says to me was, "Do you have AIDS?"
Aww.
It's like, and then she started crying, and she was like, "I'm not gonna have grandchildren." I was like, "This is all about you, isn't it? This is." Anyway, that's where I actually start the book is at 19, because didn't resolve any of those issues, so I dove headfirst and got a drug dealer boyfriend, because that's what you do.
It sounds like a great movie.
There's
like many sequels and so perfect for a memoir.
Well, I also, I am a screenwriter, and I the memoirs I did read and researching this and stuff were the ones I really enjoyed were the ones that read like fiction. And so I intentionally also try to write this as if it were a thriller, like a fiction, because as cinematic as possible. Because I wanted a page turner. I wanted people to like really get into this and almost forget that it was a memoir, and then finish it and be like, wait, what? That actually happened? Just to really invest in the experience. Because that's what I like to read. I appreciate, again, authors who even get a memoir published. I get lost sometimes when it gets too flowery, too flourishy, too moving away from the action and into this experience that happened with their mother when they were 2.5, but it has no context to what's happening in the chapter, that kind of thing. Again, it's really hard to write a book. I don't want to bash anybody, but that's just my preference.
Well, we're very excited to read it. Is there a particular maybe chapter or part of the book that was emotionally really hard to write but felt essential to include?
Oh, girl.
All of it?
Well, okay, so a lot of it. Obviously the one chapter where the young man died, that was, I'd finish multiple chapters and just sit and cry. I am feeling like that. Okay, the hesitation is because I haven't said this out loud on a podcast yet, because there is one chapter that I feel like can answer this question. It's just, I'm just trying to get it out. with that undercover boyfriend, his home situation, he lived with his grandmother and step grandfather because both his parents separately on different occasions were killed in bad drug deals. His grandmother, though very loving, had a husband who drank a 24 pack of Budweiser daily and was like abusive to my lover, to the point where he'd have bruises. And so my mother took pity and said, he needs to live with us. So my boyfriend, undercover boyfriend, who I'm madly in love with, lived with me my junior year of high school. Like I said, no teenager is equipped to deal with that. As an adult, like living with my husband, it's like you're working out roommate things all the damn time. Like, it's just like, you can have your lover, your friend, doesn't matter. They're still your roommate, and there's still some very basic roommate thing. Anyway, he lived with me. My second oldest brother, very emotional, deep into alcohol and drugs at that point, learning disabilities. The world just felt he didn't have a place in the world. In Virginia, there's this college that you go to if you fail out of other colleges. He failed out of that one. Like, he just didn't have the things. And so he came back home. My father owned a service station, so he came back home to be an oil change technician. So this guy doesn't feel very good about himself or the world. He came back home, and my bedroom was in the basement, so he came back home and lived in the other part of the basement while my undercover boyfriend was living with us. He, unlike anybody else, for some reason could sense something he just did not like, so we tried to hide, my undercover boyfriend. But we, one weekend, undercover boyfriend and I came home plastered off like some Stoli vodka, whatever, just, vomiting in the toilet, taking turns. And I crawled in my bed, pass out, and he passed out on top of me, but left the light on. So woke up a couple hours later to my brother, drunk himself, ripping him off, throwing him across the room, and just screaming, "My brother's not a faggot. My brother's not a faggot." And all I can think is to protect undercover boyfriend, so I get between them. But my brother's fists were already flying, and so I, get knocked down, come back up, get knocked down, come back up, and I just was defending. I just needed to defend, trying to get my boyfriend out of there, like run, run, run. So it didn't end well. I kept getting in my brother's face, and I was like resolved to not move. I was resolved to like, you could murder me, it wouldn't matter, but you're not going to touch him. And I think my brother finally saw that, saw what he was doing, and like panicked, and then ran upstairs with my mother. Anyway, the next day, my mother sat me down, and I'm fully expecting her to be like, "We're going to deal with your brother. I'm so sorry this happened." Instead, my mother was like, "Yeah, ex-boyfriend, he's got to leave." Not ex-boyfriend, undercover boyfriend. His name is Derek in the book. She's like, "Yeah, Derek has to leave and can never come back." And that was it. I was like, "Do you see my face? What about my brother?" She's like, "We'll take care of that." They never did anything. My dad never talked about it. Siblings never talked. Nobody did. And then we moved on. And so I lived with that. And that chapter was hard to write because this is my brother, and he's gay bashing me, and it made me hate him for 10 years. And then, we've healed, we've talked about it. But the last chapter in the book, I had to have a happy ending. I had to have something. So the last chapter in the book, I talk about my wedding to my now husband, who I've referred to. We got married 2 years ago. And, I first talk about my mother genuinely wanting to walk me down the aisle, still being Mormon, but she loves my husband more than me at this point. Like, it's really sweet, this journey she and I've been on, and she just couldn't wait. She just so happy. But I also talk about, I'm going to get emotional, you guys. There's this moment, there's this photo and video, but there's this photo where my husband and I, after the ceremony, we walked halfway down the aisle, and we stop, and we kiss again. And it's this great photo because everybody's around us cheering. I'm going to get emotional. But then you see right behind me, like near the front row, that brother, I mean, probably the proudest, happiest. I mean, just like in the video, you can see him just clapping, like genuinely so happy for me. And it touches me every time because it's just this journey that we humans, that I don't know, it's just, I never expected my brother and I to have any kind of relationship ever, but knowing what he was going through, knowing what I was going through, and the mess of shit that made us have that terrible conflict, which again, on the surface is straight up gay bashing, but underneath that, there's so much going on. He was in pain, I was in pain, all kinds of stuff. So we're in this beautiful place now. We're great friends. But that chapter was very hard to write because, yeah, one, that happened. Two, I feel bad for my brother. I genuinely feel bad. I don't, I had to put that happy ending in there because I needed people to know that people do evolve. People do grow, people do change, and people can forgive. But anyway, that's
You're gonna make me emotional.
well, that's just one of many chapters that actually made me cry. And again, I don't want this to be sad, so I tried to write in a way that was still entertaining, though. Like, man, I wanted that experience where, how 1 second you're just laughing your ass off, you're like, oh my god, that's so funny, then literally a blink of an eye you're sobbing. Like, I wanted the reader to have that experience, those quick turns. Yeah. Happy Saturday
It was a roller
morning.
coaster memoir.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I still, I'm an actor by trade. I'm a storyteller. Like, I get it. Like, let's I still want to entertain. I can't help it.
Hey, the world needs stories.
Yeah.
So speaking of storytelling, we saw that you received the Writers Boot Camp LGBTQIA+ fellowship. So how did that? What is that, and how did it impact your writing? And what did you take away from that experience?
Oh my gosh! Thanks for picking that up. That is the writers that boot camp. They're founded here in LA. They've been around since the late '80s, and they're like shepherds. They generally have been shepherds for screenplays and TV pilots, and have some great, a great roster of people who've come through the program. Side note, obviously you can gather from the interview that I may not have finished college. And when the pandemic hit, I was like, how many credits do I have? Because I don't really need, with what I do as an artist, I don't necessarily need a degree, but I was like, how many credits do I have? And in that research, I found, the University of Virginia had a wonderful program for people in my position. And so I finished my degree. I got a BA in creative writing from UVA through the pandemic. And part of the final thing was researching other memoirs and beginning to organize how this memoir was going to, happen. My main professor, she's, published memoirist. And so I worked with her. But that was the summer of 2023. Yeah, summer of 2023. And then from there, I had enough of I guess outline treatment of what I was going to do, and the fellowship was. I don't necessarily know why the boot camp at that moment was like, we're opening this up to an LGBT scholarship. Maybe they just do it every couple of years. I did notice like last year they did a BIPOC scholarship, so I was like, okay, cool. So they're opening it up. They're really helping that out. So I submitted and they accepted me. It's saves me quite a lot of money. I'm very grateful, and it was a 10-week program where, really building, not necessarily getting to page just yet, but building the structure. In a structured environment, building the structure of the book that would tell the story in the most impactful way possible. And so it was essentially a class, honestly. but I mean, they called it a boot camp because I mean, it's a lot of work. You're getting in there. It was actually, the best way to say this, it was another college course. So I was like primed for that. I was like, okay, we got this. But the significance was that getting it, especially at that time that I was graduating, was like my clear sign from the universe that like this is the direction you're going to head in now. So commit to this, and that's exactly what I did. I was like, just put my head down and keep going. And here I am, 18 months to, well, this summer will be 2 years. So like later with like talking to you ladies like about this book that like it's going to be coming out there. So yeah, so it was inspiring, and it was my signpost from the universe, like keep going.
Yeah,
Well,
and here we are, and you have a memoir that's being published.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yes, thank you.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be, and would you even try to give yourself advice?
I'm laughing. I don't know if you watch Drag Race at all. Do you imagine?
I haven't.
Yeah, it's fine. But I'm sure some of your listeners have listened to Drag Race. But RuPaul at the end, the final episode, asks that question to the 3 or 4 finalists every time. And so for the past however many seasons I've watched it, I'm like, yeah, what would I say? And then I've never dug deeper than that. And then I just did another interview last week, and he asked me the same question. I was like, oh, now I have to answer it. What would I say? What would I do? Because the truth is like, if I say something, it's like the time travel paradox. If I actually say something to my younger self that changes the trajectory, do I change who I am currently? Like, does it, the things I had to do in recovery in order to really love and accept and trust and believe in myself, which I genuinely feel like I do, is a boon now, is a prize for going through that. So do I change that? So what I told him, and what I feel is true for me, I think the most important things said in this world are the things between what is being said. Meaning, I would go back to him and just, I'm going to cry again, and just sit with him and just hug him, period. That's what I would do. I could warn him what's coming. It doesn't matter. That little boy just desperately wanted to be, feel seen, feel held, feel like he existed, like he wasn't invisible and part of the wall. I'd just hold him, to be honest, because I'm a mess too now. Like I would just be like, can I have a hug? That's what I would do. I mean, I would help. I do believe we have a purpose and a journey. So if anything, I would just help make that a little bit lighter, knowing what he was about to go through. Just a little bit like, I'm so sorry, buddy, but here's a hug. That was the answer I came up with.
You just need a hug.
Yeah, seriously. I need a hug.
Yeah. It's hard to answer that because, I mean, you were nodding your head, so I get you agree that, like, does it change who I am now? Yeah. Versus, like, if I have to go through it, then can I at least make it a little easier for the guy? I haven't talked about the molestation. I haven't talked about all the other really fun topics that I don't want to talk about because I want to keep this fun. But I'm just saying, like, there's things he had to go through. Not had to. I don't want to say it like that, but there's things that I went through. Yeah.
But it made you who you are today, and you're accomplishing things, and you're here talking to us.
Yeah.
So you've come so far.
Thank you. Yeah. I just don't want this to be sad.
Well, on a happy note, so you did mention at the beginning of the interview that this year will mark 20 years of sobriety. So early congratulations.
Thank you.
From us.
Thank you.
So how will you be celebrating this milestone?
Oh, it's a good question. I get to finally think about that. I don't want to jinx it, but I think I'll make it. Depending on what coast you're on, with the 12-step rooms, they either say, anniversary, congratulations, or they say happy birthday, like a renewal. So I'm on the coast where I'll take a cake and, you know, they'll sing happy birthday because it's, you know, it's a renewal. It's a new birth. It's a new life. And I like to I I like to I could throw a party, but I'm less inclined to do that and rather just have a smaller get together where it's a little more intimate and I can genuinely express my gratitude for the people that have helped get me to where I am. Because that's the thing about recovery. It's not something I did. It's something everybody else did for me because I asked for help. Well, I guess that's the part I did. I asked for help. So it's just as much about the people in my inner and outer circle as it is about me. So I would do it would be a smaller, focused celebration of everything I'm grateful for and worth being grateful for. Because, I mean, this story, when you read it, you'll fully understand when I say I have this superpower now where if I'm having a really shitty day, I can just remember my past and I'm like, I'm good. Moving on. We're good. We did it. We're here. So it's a gift to be able to be like, yeah, nothing compares to then. So let's just smile and move on with our day. So it's almost like giving back to those people who gave to me, to answer your question. That's what I'll be doing.
That's wonderful.
It is.
Thank you. Oh.
So we've talked about it a little bit. We've touched on it. You're not only a writer, but also a talented artist and actor as well. So I saw that you were in a web series, Husbands, which was groundbreaking as one of the first web series to focus on a same-sex marriage. So can you talk a little bit about your experience on that show?
Oh my goodness. I miss it so much. I miss it so much. So, you know, believe it or not, now on TV, it's very easy to see, you know, gay characters that weren't cliches. But, you know, 12 years ago, 14 years ago, the gay characters that we saw were just cliches and they were side characters. That's what they were. I feel so old saying that because that feels like common knowledge, but I feel like there's a generation coming up that just are used to gay leads or gay whatever. I mean, you know, 14 years ago, you know, we may not have seen, I don't know, Jonathan Bailey, you know, being out, you know, doing his thing, you know. Anyway, so some TV folks got the bright idea to push that by proving there's an audience by first doing it online as a web series without, you know, because it takes the risk away, because then they can show the numbers to the networks and be like, you should pick this up because look at this. And there was Jane Espenson, who at the time and still is a major, you know, TV writer. She does a lot more science fiction, and I guess our show was science fiction at the time. A newlywed sitcom, but with two guys. But she, you know, she came up on Buffy, so she did all of Buffy and with Joss, and at that time she started to do she did some episodes of Game of Thrones at that time when it came out. So she's done a lot, and you can look her up. She's the queen of sci-fi, and you know. So she wrote that with another YouTube personality, this fellow named Cheeks, and they pulled in the director ended up being one of the producers of Will and Grace, Friends, and so it was like, well, there you go, you know. And because of them, they filled the show with TV actors, like people you'd recognize, you know, John Cryer or a lot of people from the sci-fi world, because again, James, you know, brought them in, and so that was the plan. It was like, let's build up the followers, and they, you know, the episodes were not your normal 22-minute pilot length. Excuse me, they were shorter than that because that way it built up the views and stuff. And we got millions of views. You know, we did 3 seasons, millions of views. We were the first podcast. We were the first web series that the New Yorker reviewed, that Time magazine reviewed. They were just like, this is it. This is everything. And so the CW picked us up, and not so great was the new normal I guess that was Ryan Murphy's take on a not newlywed, but gay sitcom with Andrew Reynolds and some other guy based on Ryan Murphy's life or something. I don't know if you remember that. It was like a comedy series. It did not do well. It did not do well at all. So that did not look good for us. But ours was actually funny. Oh, that sounds like a cut. I didn't mean to sound like that. Ours was funny, genuinely, really, really funny. The New Normal was like, okay. I think they were playing it extremely safe because they were, a network thing at that time. So regardless, the CW was like, we love you, we want you, let's do this. And they first put us because every network was scrambling to build a streaming platform, and so it was like CW Seed. We were their flagship show, and they were pushing us out with that, and it was great. And then we were in talks to be one of their main shows on the CW because everything was pointing in that direction. I'm not a producer on the show. I played one of the husbands. I played one of the leads. I was, part of all of that. But I don't know. I was told it was being made into a show. And then, but because I'm not a producer, I wasn't in the room. So I don't know. I don't exactly know what happened. But it did not move forward. And that was tragic for this actor when you're being told like, hey, it's your time. Finally, you're going to be the lead of the show. Look at you go. This is it. You made it. And then it not moving forward and then disappearing. And then all of the excitement's gone. And then like you get depressed for a year and you're like, why am I doing this? I hate Hollywood. I'm going to go paint. That's essentially how I started painting. So, I think you can still find episodes on YouTube somewhere. I know they had to take it down because of, I think you can do the third season, but I don't even know. Again, I not being the producer, I don't know the ins and outs of why all of it isn't up there, because I literally have fans from the show who still follow me on Instagram and message like, wait, how do I still watch this in the UK? How do I do this, that, the other? Like, it was a good show. It was a good show. So
all 3 seasons are on YouTube. There is someone made a playlist with all of them, so you can just hit play, and all of them will start going.
Oh, good. Oh, God. Okay, cool. Okay, thank you for that information. Okay, thank you. You can watch.
I'll send you the link.
Thank you. Please do. I thought it was only the last season.
Oh, Theora. Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, there you go. There it is, everybody.
And it is funny.
Thank you.
Back you up.
It was smart. It's like whip crack. Like, it's smart. It's funny. And if you're a sci-fi fan, you'll recognize Amy Acker. What is his name? Oh my gosh, he played my father. So because I was Mormon, they gave me Mormon parents. Michael Hogan. I don't know if you're a Battlestar Galactica fan, but I was like super fan before the show. I watched it all. It's just an epic show. And Michael Hogan plays the like second in command or something. Just this gruff, like, rah, 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 just white hair, like, rah. And look, I'm an actor. Yes. I'm a professional. Yes. But I'm also a fan. So of course, in the middle of me doing my scene with Michael Hogan, that's his name. My brain is like listening to him. We're doing the father-son moment, but my brain is like, why is Colonel Ty looking at me? I was like, my brain was like, like, what is happening right now? Okay. Again, I'm an actor, I'm a professional, but of course I'm also a fan. So
yeah,
you can't help it.
It was a trip. I mean, when you watch stuff and you spend time, you feel like the characters. Therefore, you feel like the actor. But it's not the actor; it's the character that you feel like you know. So when you see them in real life, your brain's like, it's this weird disassociation of like, I know this person, but that person has never met me in my entire life.
So speaking of your acting career, so as somebody who's a part of the LGBTQ umbrella, and you've been part of LGBTQ media, how do you feel that the industry has evolved in terms of queer representation over the years? Because you kind of touched on like why Husbands was groundbreaking and things like that, but
well, there's two fronts to that. I mean, there's one where where the actor personally can be out and thriving. Again, Jonathan Bailey. Other examples even before him, I almost said Matt Damon, but Bomer. Jonathan Bailey's about to be like the lead of like a blockbuster Jurassic Park. And I don't, Jurassic Park World, whatever. Anyway, so on one level, it's the idea that an actor can be out is changed dramatically. And, a lot of times, I think of the hypothetical if if Brokeback Mountain was, being made right now, it wouldn't have the same impact, but would it be made with gay actors or would it be made with straight actors? Queer is out right now, and Daniel Craig and the other kid, they're straight. So that's just as, so maybe not, maybe that doesn't matter. So the question now is like, who can play who and when is it okay? Timothy Chalamet, that Armie Hammer film, Call Me by Your Name, they're straight. So like, the question about diversity and like who can play who and that kind of stuff is there. But generally the landscape as far as behind the scenes has shifted dramatically. I don't know if like there was an openly gay actor playing a tough rancher. Like, I don't know if it'd be a big deal if like Kevin Costner came out as gay on the Yellowstone because that appeals to the Midwest. I don't know if that still matters, or something like that. But generally where, from my point of view as an actor, it doesn't matter as much anymore. You may get casting directors independently, maybe like only see you as like the LGBT actor, but that's on them. That's different. A lot of times castings, they would, if it's an LGBT character, they will say LGBT preferred, but they're not locked into that. But it's become less and less of a big deal. It really has, which is amazing, which is, wow. Because 10 years ago, I was like, even though it was out to my friends, I was like, I am not going to be out to the industry. Are you kidding me? So.
Yeah, we've come a long way, and we were at the end of our interview, so we want to thank you. I know. Thank you so much for sharing everything and answering our questions. We really appreciate getting to know you and hearing more about your memoir and just your career in general. For our listeners at home that want to maybe read your book or support you, how can they do that?
Sure. So the publication, the release date still being wrestled around. I unfortunately do not have that, but when I do, I would tell you. I would tell the ladies, and maybe they can add it somewhere, or maybe I can come back. I don't know. We'll see. But if you want all the up to date, all the up to date 411 on it, just follow me on Instagram. I do everything there, all the acting, all the painting, art, and obviously the book. So it's just at Sean Hemeon, and I'll pop up, and there I am. You can see my beautiful little doggies, my little Bostons. You'll see my husband, my art, whatever I'm up to. But again, all the book info will be there. So just, or my website, SeanHemeon.com, if that's easier as well. I am sure this will be in the show notes, right?
Yes, we will link your website in the show notes.
Thank you.
If you're on our Instagram, you will be tagged out, all that stuff.
Oh, perfect.
So you guys can find everybody can find Sean on our Instagram as well. So thank you again. We really appreciate it. We're looking forward to your release date and all the good things coming for you this year. We're very excited.
Thank you.
So for those listening at home, thanks for tuning in. And until next time, hydrate for lesbian Jesus.
And gay it up all over the place.
Hey.
Bye.
And with that, we've been Big Gay Energy. If you like this episode, check out all our other episodes right here on YouTube.
Please like, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more amazing super gay content.